How the U.S. made affordable homes illegal. The affordability of housing has been a growing concern in the United States, with many factors contributing to a severe shortage of affordable homes. Over time, policies and practices intended to address housing issues have inadvertently created barriers to affordable housing development. From zoning laws to market-driven policies, these factors have combined to make affordable housing increasingly out of reach for many Americans. Understanding how these elements intersect helps shed light on the complex dynamics behind the crisis. Number 10. The rise of zoning laws. In the early 20th century, the adoption of zoning laws aimed to segregate residential areas by income and social class. Initially intended to protect neighborhoods and maintain property values, these regulations gradually evolved to restrict the construction of affordable housing in certain areas. This shift inadvertently entrenched social inequality by confining low-income families to less desirable locations. Over time, these laws also contributed to a shortage of affordable housing options, exacerbating housing inequality. As cities expanded, zoning regulations limited the creation of diverse housing options, compounding the affordability crisis. Imagine a system designed to protect, but which ultimately confines and excludes the very people it was supposed to serve. Number 9. Influence of NIMBYism. Not in my backyard, NIMB attitudes have played a crucial role in hindering affordable housing development. Residents often resist new projects, fearing declines in property values or changes to their neighborhood's character. This resistance can manifest in public opposition, lengthy permitting processes, and stringent local regulations that block affordable housing initiatives. As a result, the development of such projects is frequently delayed or canceled, perpetuating housing shortages. NIMBYism has thus become a significant barrier to addressing the affordable housing crisis. It also fosters a cycle where community opposition makes it increasingly difficult to implement necessary housing reforms. What happens when community pride transforms into a barrier for progress? Number 8. The impact of the Federal Housing Act of 1934. The Federal Housing Act of 1934 created the Homeowners Loan Corporation (HOLC) and the Federal Housing Administration (FAA), which initially aimed to provide loans to low and middle-income families. However, these institutions often reinforce racial segregation by redlining neighborhoods, making it difficult for minorities to access affordable housing. The redlining practices not only limited housing opportunities for minority communities, but also contributed to long-term economic disparities. This policy led to a legacy of disinvestment in certain areas, perpetuating cycles of poverty and inequality. As HOLC and FAA policies favored certain neighborhoods, they inadvertently entrenched segregation and hindered equitable access to affordable housing. What started as a lifeline for many families turned into a tool for systemic exclusion. Number 7. The evolution of property taxes. Rising property taxes in many urban areas have disproportionately affected lower-income families. As these taxes increase, they contribute to higher housing costs, making affordable homes less viable. This tax burden can drive up rent prices and force long-term residents out of their communities. Property taxes, intended to fund local services, thus create a financial strain that impacts the availability of affordable housing. In areas with skyrocketing property taxes, affordable housing projects become less feasible, contributing to housing shortages. This fiscal pressure exacerbates economic segregation by driving lower-income residents to less desirable areas. How did a well-intentioned tax system become a silent force, pushing affordable housing out of reach? Number 6. The effect of building codes and regulations. Strict building codes and regulations often add significant costs to housing construction, which disproportionately affects affordable housing projects. These codes, designed for safety and quality, can inadvertently make low-cost housing projects economically unfeasible. While ensuring that new constructions meet high standards, these regulations also increase the financial barriers for affordable housing developers. As compliance costs rise, fewer developers are willing or able to pursue affordable housing projects. Consequently, this creates a significant gap between the need for affordable housing and its actual availability. The cost associated with adhering to stringent codes can also delay projects, further compounding the housing crisis. What happens when safety regulations become a stumbling block for affordable housing initiatives? Number 5. The role of single-family zoning. Single-family zoning laws have been a major factor in restricting the development of affordable housing. By mandating that only single-family homes can be built in certain areas, these laws limit the density and diversity of housing options available. This type of zoning also excludes the possibility of constructing multifamily units or affordable housing projects in affluent neighborhoods. As urban areas continue to expand, single-family zoning perpetuates economic segregation and restricts housing supply. Consequently, affordable housing remains concentrated in less desirable locations, exacerbating inequality. The preference for single-family zoning also stifles innovation in housing design and limits housing density. How did a policy meant to preserve suburban tranquility end up stifling affordable housing? Number 4. The influence of real estate developers. Real estate developers often prioritize high-profit projects such as luxury apartments and commercial properties over affordable housing. This profit-driven focus can lead to the exclusion of affordable housing from new developments. Developers are more inclined to invest in projects that promise higher returns, leaving affordable housing projects underfunded or ignored. The competition for prime real estate and high-end market demands overshadow the need for affordable housing. As a result, cities face a growing imbalance between luxury developments and the availability of affordable options. This focus on high-profit ventures also means that affordable housing is frequently sidelined in urban planning. When profit becomes the primary driver, who pays the price for a lack of affordable housing? Number 3. The decline of public housing. Over the decades, funding for public housing has dwindled, leading to a significant reduction in affordable housing options. Policies that have shifted responsibility from the federal government to local jurisdictions have exacerbated this issue. Reduced funding has resulted in the deterioration of existing public housing and the inability to construct new units. Local governments often lack the resources to address the growing demand for affordable housing, further straining the system. As public housing projects decline, the gap between available affordable housing and the needs of low-income families widens. This decline also contributes to an increase in homelessness and housing instability among vulnerable populations. What happens when public responsibility for housing erodes, leaving vulnerable populations without support? Number 2. The impact of gentrification. Gentrification often leads to the displacement of low-income residents as neighborhoods are revitalized and property values increase. This process frequently results in the elimination of affordable housing options in gentrifying areas. As higher-income individuals move in, property values rise, and long-time residents are pushed out due to unaffordable rents. The transformation of these neighborhoods often prioritizes upscale developments over affordable housing. Consequently, gentrification accelerates housing inequality and reduces the availability of affordable options. The influx of new, higher-income residents also pressures local businesses and services, further marginalizing existing communities. How does the promise of neighborhood improvement often come at the cost of affordable housing? Number 1. The consequences of market-driven housing policies. Market-driven housing policies, which favor deregulation and minimal government intervention, have led to a housing market where affordability is often sacrificed for profit and market efficiency. This approach has marginalized affordable housing development and exacerbated housing inequality. With minimal oversight, developers are incentivized to pursue high-profit ventures rather than address housing shortages. As market forces drive up housing costs, affordable options become increasingly scarce, leaving many families struggling to find suitable homes. This market-centric approach has profoundly impacted the availability and accessibility of affordable housing. The lack of regulatory intervention has allowed housing prices to soar beyond the reach of many working-class families. In a market that prioritizes profit over people, what happens to the promise of affordable housing for all? Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos on YouTube.